JCI Live Austin, Texas, USA. My name is Mauri Gandy. And this week has been kind of interesting with the news going on and the new president, Donald Trump. I heard Thursday as I was on Facebook listening to reading some different posts. I heard that Jay Sekulow, who's an attorney for American Center for Law and Justice, he was online, and he said that he realized he was trying to figure out what was going on with all these leaks going on at the White House. And he said that on January 3rd, Obama did an executive order to expand the power of the National Security Agency to share global interpretation for 16 government agencies. And so now realize this is done on January 3rd, just 2 weeks before a new president came into power. So what that has done is since the Reagan years, there has been security in what is going on in the White House. And now you have 16 different government agencies that have access to all these files. And that's why there's so many of the leaks going on. So I asked a friend what she thought. I wanted her to see what was going on, what Jay Sekulow was saying. And so she said she was just going to get out of all this stuff and just focus on Jesus Christ. And she turned me to Philippians 2:3. And that says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourselves. Each of you should look not only to your own interests, but also to the interest of others. Your attitude should be the same as that of Christ Jesus, who being in very nature God did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but made himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness, and being formed in appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to death, even death on a cross. Therefore God exalted himself to the highest place and gave him the name that is above every name. And that is the name of Jesus. Every knee shall bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth." And also this week, I was listening to K-Love, and a lady phoned in saying that her pastor said that fill it in with grace. So for example, if you're driving down the highway and a car cuts in front of you, think about it as if that person is taking his wife to the hospital because they're having a baby. Just fill it in with grace. And do like Jesus or Paul said, to count it all joy. So Friday night, Jamie and I took my youngest grandkids, Avery and Brett, to the school dance at Bluebonnet Trails Elementary. They had a fundraiser of Make-A-Wish Foundation for children in the hospital in the Central Texas area. And Brett shared with me as he was dancing one of his favorite songs, a song by the Logos, "Everything is Awesome." And it says, everything is awesome, everything is cool. When you're part of the team, when you're living our dream, everything is better when we stick together, you and I, side by side. And I just started thinking, that's the way we really should be. We should be feeling that everything is awesome, no matter what goes on. It's my new theme song. And also think about what Senator Ted Cruz said this week. He said that in one of the interviews, he said he can't wait to get out of bed, to rise up, because he's excited to be able to go to work in a proactive administration now. And so it's just all this stuff is leading up that in spite of all the chaos that is going on, we just really need to work together as Christians and be unified. Even on Mike Lee's show last Monday, the owner of Sam's Barbecue was saying that that's what we really need, whether it's Democrats or Republicans. Christians should unite together and just have that unity, that we're on the same team, and it's Team Jesus, and that's what we need to do. So I'm going to share this little dance that Brett had when he was at his the dance Friday night, and just enjoy seeing a child that is just so excited that everything is awesome. So everything is awesome. Everything is cool. When you're part of the Jesus team, when you're living our dream, everything is better when we stick together, you and I. So this week, my family, Jonathan, Jamie, and I watched the movie, as if you can see it, Priceless, that's just now out on DVD. We like to support Christian movies. Priceless is about some true stories. It's not a totally true story, but it's got different aspects of true stories in there. And the song Priceless by, I think it's called King and Country, the storyline, they made a song into it. It's become very popular. If we have time at the end, we'll share that. But this DVD, Priceless movie trailer is on now. It's up next.
We're all on a journey. It seems somewhere along the way I took a wrong turn. So many regrets, so many mistakes.
But I want to stay with you, Daddy.
And then it happened. And I never even saw it coming.
You look beat. What are you hauling?
Nothing really.
Now, why would you have to go through all that? You're just hauling nothing.
I just for once wanted to do the right thing.
We want to thank you for helping us.
You want to be here?
I want to be a singer, like Taylor Swift. Do you like Taylor Swift?
No. Did I fail them?
Vessel! There's no lock, huh?
Did I do what needed to be done?
Hey, the girls, where are you taking? It's not your problem. Happy trails.
You obviously know something about this. Then help me.
Well, if you're hearing a little voice that's telling you to stay, that there's a larger hand at play here, then you might want to listen to that voice.
These girls don't belong to you.
Those girls don't belong to anyone.
You go down this road, you can't go back to normal life again.
There's some bad dudes who are gonna kill you.
My friendship comes at a cost.
This is not what love looks like.
I want to shut this thing down.
I see you dressed in white. How could you just leave us?
You have to trust me.
That word is broken for you.
I'm gonna make this right.
Irreplaceable, unmistakable, incomparable, talent is beautiful. James, no! So priceless.
Really is a movie you can watch with your kids, especially teenagers. You need to teach them that our children are priceless, and they just need to they need to grow up feeling loved and treasured, and God treasures each one of our children. We live in a dark period right now when so many children or parents are aborting their own children, and it's just important that we treasure our children, that we understand what a masterpiece life is. Last Monday, the Trailer Park Show, we had talked about it last week. A group called the Remembrance Project was on. Buddy, his first name is Fred Funderburr. He was on the program, and Mara, I believe it's pronounced Phelan, was on. And so I've got a clip, about a 10-minute clip from their Trailer Park Show, which airs every Monday at 7 o'clock. And it was really good. It was about, well, I'll just let you listen to it.
Like this. We used to, and actually they're making it like this. We used to have a peaceful transition of power.
That's true.
Now we have coups in the street, protests, fights.
A huge pride for the U.S. that we did have. I mean, that's one of the amazing things about the United States, is that we would have a peaceful transition of power.
Well, I guess we've been globalized.
Well, no, I think the problem is we're undereducated. The kids don't take civics in school. They don't understand what the Electoral College is. They don't understand how it works. They don't at all. They don't understand the process. And so they get out and protest because they think if they're loud enough that they can do whatever they want. I think they also don't take responsibility. We've got, like, this girl whose dad got deported. Well, it's always somebody else's fault. It's the sheriff's fault he got deported. It's not her dad's fault.
Never her dad. He got drunk and sideswiped the car. Came on, beat up his mama so bad they had to have an ambulance.
Well, and obviously didn't try to become legal during that time either. So, you know, we have a lot of people who are here, who've been here illegally for a long time, who are who have jobs and who contribute and everything else. And yes, I think that our immigration has a problem because these people can't get status as residents, even though they've been good citizens for a long time and shown themselves to be good citizens. But they can't get it because of the quota system that the Immigration Service has. And that's ridiculous when we've got people who are passing right through who we know are bad people, and that they're passing through because they meet the quota for that particular country. So our immigration system has a problem. And then we've got a lot of people here who are here illegally who are not good people, who keep showing up in court and keep using different names. I can't tell you the times as a prosecutor that you ended up having to give a recommendation for them to go to jail just because you didn't have any other options, because they are illegal and they've done this before. So, and that's a problem. We need to be able to keep bad people out. I mean, any other country, they would have been deported right away. In England, they kick you out if your 30-day pass is expired. So.
Go ahead, Joe. I know you got to say something about this too. We're going to get to you, buddy.
You know, I think that the immigration system, yes, does need a little tuning up. I agree with that. But it's not the local administrations, the sheriff, the city police. It's nobody's business. It's got to start up in Washington. It's got to start up in Washington when they litigate the law. They make laws. We don't make anything but enforce the laws here. And if you don't have a free society, you have people running amok, just like you had over on Runberg and Lamar. There is no reason to burn anybody's property. There is no reason at all. Back in the day, in the day of the riots in the 60s and the 70s, you would have the police out there. You would have the fire trucks out there with
their batons.
Water hose and hose everybody down and get them off the street. And today they block traffic. They can lock hands and block traffic. This is totally
A major intersection.
unrest in this country.
Well,
something's wrong.
The clarification, actually no property was burnt. Only thing burnt was in one police car.
Well, that's our property.
That's our property.
I'm sorry.
Our
taxes.
We pay taxes.
I don't think anything else was burnt, but they did a lot of trying to.
But look at all the other communities in the United States. We've seen this chaos and this disease like a cancer growing all over the country. It's because we don't agree with one thing or another, and we got to protest. We got to burn things down. You got to break into people's property.
But
why?
People think that they can because the local establishment has said, you know what, that particular law, we don't like that one, so we're not going to follow that one. We're going to follow some of these others, but nah, we're just not going to apply that law to you. We're just not going to apply it to these people. We're just not going to apply this particular law. And I'm sorry, but that is what creates chaos.
You know, what really disappoints me is that these are the tolerant people.
They're the tolerant people?
Yeah.
They claim to be.
Yeah.
They want to tolerate all the different diversity and all that kind of stuff.
Except they're intolerant to the people who want to have people be held to the law, held to standards, held to, be nice to other people. I mean, the biblical rule, do unto others as you'd have do unto you. I mean, they aren't doing protests like Martin Luther King or anyone else who said, go forth and let them know you're there, but do not violate the law to do it. I mean, Martin Luther King never advocated violence, never advocated hurting people, hurting property, but rather showing that you wanted to be heard, and by your showing, be heard. And this isn't what they're doing. They hold themselves out as doing that, but that's not what they're doing.
Buddy, there's still something in here.
Well, I think that, just like you said, do unto others as you have others do unto you. I think a lot of people look at that like do unto others before they do it unto you. But, it always happens to someone else. We always know, well, we heard this on the news or we heard that on the news. Until it hits home, till it happens to you or some of your family, then you can understand it. I mean, a lot of these people are out there saying, like the little girl that says, well, my dad got taken away, my family split, and that split my family. Well, someday she'll be able to see her father again.
She could have gone with him.
They know where they're at, I'm sure. The immigration's going to tell them where they're at. But you want to talk about splitting a family, have a son and daughter-in-law taken from you by these people. And
give us a rundown on what happened here.
Well, what happened, my son and daughter-in-law were riding a motorcycle. They're going 61 miles an hour.
We had the picture still up there.
We have the speedometer, and it locked in as they were hit from behind. An illegal immigrant hit them from behind and drugged them, almost it was between 2 and 3 football fields before he stopped.
And he was driving like a little Kia or something, and he had this motorcycle in the engine compartment. The car only stopped because it stopped.
Yeah, it stopped because the car was inoperable. Mm-hmm. And he got out of the car and fled the scene. They brought him back to the scene and charged him with intoxicated manslaughter, two charges. He was a repeat offender. He was arrested in Travis County for a DWI and given personal bond, and I think they fined him $400.
Instead of deporting him then?
Instead of deporting. Had they deported him at that time, my son and daughter-in-law would probably still be alive at this time. So, Sanctuary City is something that really, I'm not for that. But anyway, they have, they have a law that after 90 days, if you have not been indicted, they have to give you personal bond.
Right.
So they gave this immigrant personal bond. He was turned over to ICE because they had a hold on him. Thank God they had a hold on him, or he would have just been turned right out on the streets to do it again. But they took him down to Pearsall. They were trying to deport him. And the district attorney at Bastrop County filed leaving the scene, felon stop and render aid, which is a felony. And they did bring him back. We had a hard time getting him back because at that time when he was in Pearsall, he was a federal prisoner. And I think federal overruled state or something like that. But we did get him back down there. He's there now with a $500,000 bond, and he still has a nice hold on him, and he goes to court in March. But this is, I belong to the Remembrance Project, and that is a group of people that have lost loved ones, family members to illegal aliens that are here. I can't tell you how many cases I've heard, how many families of, from 17-year-old daughter that was, killed and mutilated by one to 25-year-old musician that had his whole life in front of him, was shot and killed in Houston. Now, both these were in Houston. They have several of them in Austin: child abuse, child molestations, rape. There was an 84-year-old lady that got
just recently here.
Just recently, the guy had been deported 8 times. They can deport them all they want, but evidently that doesn't do anything. And with the guy that was charged with intoxicated manslaughter on my son and daughter-in-law, they let him out on personal bond. So you're on personal bond for 2 charges of intoxicated manslaughter, and then if you get deported, how the heck are you supposed to come back to go to trial? So that system doesn't work. I mean, they need to let them do their time, let them go to court, hold them in custody, and then deport them. After they've paid for what they've done. But there's just so many cases. We did go visit with Donald Trump. We went to the White House. He paid for the whole thing coming up there, and I understand he paid for it out of his pocket. He paid for my other son and myself to fly to Washington, D.C., paid for a hotel room. We had Secret Service bodyguards to protect us because there were some things going on up there too. He treated us like we were just really special people, and this guy's he's a billionaire. He's president of the United States.
He can multiply up there.
And he is just a genuine person. I mean, he is, we visited with him, not on camera, but he didn't have to be as nice as kind as he was to us. And he's making his word good. He got elected with these promises that he was going to deport these people and he was going to get a lot of things straightened out, and he's acting on that now.
Personally, I was really glad to know and become a friend with Buddy Funderburr and to hear his story of what happened here in Austin, Texas, and his meeting President Trump. This was before Trump, in September, when they had a luncheon and he met him, and Trump flew the families in so he could understand what's going on with the immigration and how our American families are being just terrible things that are happening. And it was good to hear of the passion that this man personally encountered with our president. And I like being part of the Trailer Park Show. They always bring things that are going here in Austin, news that is going right here in Austin and through the United States and the world. He also brings some of that in. So be sure and tune in to our local political show that's aired at the studio here at Austin Access. And it's on Mondays from 7 to 8. And then right after that is another political show Jonathan and I help with. It's the Right Talk with Mike Lee on Channel 10. Local news. I had a picture, but John's not able to access it. But if you join me on Facebook, my name is Mauri, Mauri .Gandy, Gandy, and I always try to repost current news that's going on. But it was so great to see Bibi smiling at the White House again. That's the Prime Minister of Israel. And I had a great picture there where he was smiling. Somebody, a president that believes in Israel, and God tells us to pray for the people in Israel because that's his country. Also in other news here locally in Austin, Senator Charles Schwertner breaks glass with a gavel. He jokes he'll take it easy on the Wheaties. Texas State Senator Charles Schwertner, who represents a large part of the Brazos Valley, broke a table with a gavel when ending a witness testimony against an anti-abortion bill, according to a report. So I was looking at some of these bills that are going on in front of the Senate right now. Bill 415 and 258. You can go online and check these bills out. What is it about? One of the things is, if you really know the horrific way that they are aborting these babies, you know, these are babies we have proven they have pain. And these doctors, these abortion doctors, are ripping their bodies out of the mother's wounds, arm, legs, piece by piece. It's just absolutely horrific if you watch some of the videos. And because of our technology, we're actually able to film these through the ultrasounds and the high definition ultrasounds that we can get now. And these babies are screaming when they're being ripped apart. Don't believe me, these babies do have feelings. And they've proven that. And if you've ever seen a baby, I brought 2 of them here. This is what a baby looks like at maybe 10 weeks, 12 weeks. You can hold them in your palm, but they're perfectly formed. It's a masterpiece. Babies in the womb are a masterpiece created by God. So yes, you do have a choice, but that choice, it stops once that DNA is started and that heart is beating. You've got a real live baby, and this is your child. If you're carrying it in your womb, we need to educate the people of truth, of what is really going on inside of your own bodies. Other news is yesterday or Saturday, Norma McCorvey. She is the Jane Roe that was Roe versus Wade, and she died at 69 on Saturday the 18th. I think I'm going to share her story on a special program or so, get some more videos on there so you can know the story of Jane Roe. I've seen her many times. Her name is Norma McCorvey, or was Norma McCorvey. And she was used to be used as the Jane. It was a lie of what she said to Sarah Weddington and Miss Coffey, and wasn't even in the Supreme Court to make her testimony, but they used her to be the Jane Roe, or with the Roe versus Wade. And
most of you won't recognize me or my real name. It's Norma McCorvey. I'm also known as Jane Roe, the plaintiff in the Supreme Court case, Roe versus Wade, which legalized abortion in America and changed our nation in an unprecedented way. Back in 1973, I was a very confused 21-year-old with 1 child and facing an unplanned pregnancy. At the time, I fought to obtain a legal abortion, but the truth be told, I have 3 daughters and have never had an abortion. However, upon knowing God, I realized that my case, which legalized abortion on demand, was the biggest mistake of my life. You see, abortion has eliminated 50 million innocent babies in the U.S. alone since 1973. Abortion scars an untold number of post-abortive mothers, fathers, and families too. You read about me in history books, but now I'm dedicated to spreading the truth about preserving the dignity of all human life, from natural conception to natural death.
she gave her life to Jesus after that happened, and she realized that she was part of this terrible thing that happened in our country, and she said the rest of her life she wanted to try to right the wrong that happened. So pray for her family. Pray for all the women and men to understand how we have been manipulated and deceived. In Senator Ted Cruz news, I have a video that he gave to the San Antonio convention, not the convention, Commerce, San Antonio Commerce.
With fellow Texans, Rad, thank you for the very kind words. Exactly as Ashley wrote them for you. You did a fabulous job with that. And thank you for your great friendship and leadership in San Antonio and in Texas and in the business community. You know, There's an ancient Chinese curse. May you live in interesting times. These are nothing if not interesting times. Washington right now, this is a time of incredible change. This is a time of a great deal of action in this city. And anytime there's change, there's risk. But I got to tell you, I am filled with excitement at the opportunity we have. We have an opportunity to do something extraordinary. We have an opportunity to do an enormous amount of good. Now, we could always screw it up. That's something Washington is very, very good at doing. The administration could, Congress could. But Republicans have been given something that is rare and historic. It is not often in history that Republicans are given control of the White House, of every executive agency, and of both houses of Congress. And at this point, the time for talk is over. There aren't any excuses. We've got to deliver. Now, what's that going to mean? What's that going to mean over the next year, 2 years, 4 years? Well, I can tell you my number one priority in the Senate, and this has been true from the day I was elected, is jobs and economic growth. I know that is the top priority for the men and women gathered here. It's the top priority for the citizens of San Antonio and for Texans all across the state. Wherever you go in Texas, jobs and economic growth is the number one focus, because every other problem we've got derives from that. If you want to pay down our national debt, if you want to rebuild our military and keep this country safe, if you want to strengthen and preserve Social Security and Medicare, all of that depends on growth. If we've got the economy growing and booming and more jobs being created and wages going up, we've got the resources to address all those other problems. And if we don't, if we're stuck in economic stagnation, then those problems are almost insolvable. And when it comes to economic growth, you know, one of the great things about Texas is Texans understand where jobs come from, that it's you guys that produce jobs. It's not government. It's none of the politicians who walked onto this stage. None of us produce jobs. It's the men and women sitting here, those in the private sector, putting capital at work to meet a need that create jobs. But government is really good at screwing it up. And the two best levers that government has to encourage job creation are reg reform and tax reform. What Texans understand is that when you get government out of the way, when you create an environment with limited taxes, limited regulations, when you unchain small business owners, the result is incredible prosperity. That's the Texas ethos. I like to say Texas is the basic ethos of our state is give me a horse and a gun and an open field and I can challenge the world. I like to call Texas America on steroids. And I will say on both of those, reg reform and tax reform, I'm very optimistic. Reg reform is probably the single thing I am most optimistic about with the new administration. I've sat down now with most of the new cabinet members or nominees, and almost to a person, every single member of the cabinet I've visited with, the first words out of their mouth are reg reform, are lifting the burdens of Washington on small businesses and job creators. And as I travel Texas all over the state, I hear that over and over and over again from small businesses. The federal regulations are hammering us, the energy industry. Obviously hugely critical to the future of Texas, the future of our country. I think there is an enthusiasm and optimism in the energy industry I haven't seen in a long, long time. An understanding that we're not going to have a federal government putting regs in the way, trying to crush the industry, trying to destroy jobs, trying to prevent us from developing our resources. San Antonio and South Texas, you look at the Eagle Ford, the incredible prosperity and abundance that has come from that. And Texas is now leading the world in energy production. But I believe over the next 4 years, we're going to have a federal government that seeks to advance that, to further our ability to develop energy, to create jobs, to raise wages, rather than putting in place barriers. You look at health care, a huge part of our economy. You know, last week I had the opportunity to participate in a debate on CNN with Bernie Sanders over health care. It was 2 hours, all on Obamacare and health care. I've got to say, it was, I think, more substance than we may have had the entire presidential debate cycle. It was 2 hours on one very, very important topic rather than a 60-second or 90-second soundbite, which is what you so often get in politics. You get a talking point, you get a bumper sticker, and move on to the next topic. And some of these problems, a lot of these problems are hard, they're complicated, and we need to actually drill down and understand what's going on. When it comes to Obamacare, Texans, it is the single biggest thing I hear from Texas small business owners. My time in the Senate, one of the things that I've done all over the state is hosted small business roundtables. I try to do that all over the place, invite 10, 20, 30 small business owners in a community to come sit at a table and just to talk about what challenges are facing you. I try to spend my time listening rather than talking at those roundtables and just opening it up, saying, let's talk about anything you want. What are the concerns? What is keeping you up at night? What are you praying about? What are you worried about? Every single small business roundtable I've done in Texas, the number one concern raised around the table has been Obamacare. Over and over and over again. For those of you who watched the Bernie Sanders debate, that was typified by a woman from Fort Worth who stood up. She stood up and explained she was a small business owner, that she owned several hairstyling salons, that she had, I believe, 48 employees, and she couldn't expand beyond that because Obamacare kicks in at 50. And she asked Bernie Sanders, what am I supposed to do about it? And I would encourage you, by the way, if you haven't seen that exchange, watch that exchange. I think that exchange was the most important exchange of the evening because Bernie's answer was, you're not going to like my answer. My answer is you need to pay for health insurance for everyone that's working for you. And she said, look, in the hairstyling business, our margins are tiny. If I do that, I go bankrupt. And Bernie's answer again was, well, you know, I don't know much about hair salons or small business or any of that stuff. But you've got health insurance and your employees need it too. And this woman stood up and said, I don't have health insurance. I can't afford it for me either. That's a message I've heard echoed over and over and over again. All across Texas, there are millions of what are called 49ers, small businesses that are stuck at 48, 49 employees because crossing the 50-employee threshold will put them out of business. There are millions of 29ers, employees that are stuck at 29 hours a week because crossing the threshold to 30 subjects their business to Obamacare. You know, the night after that debate, I was having dinner here in D.C., and two waitresses came up to the table. Two waitresses I know well. It's a place I have dinner a lot. They came up and they both said, you know, I watched the debate last night with Bernie. One of them said, in the last 3 years, my health insurance has tripled. It used to be $400 a month. Now it's $1,200 a month. And she said, you know what? For the first time in my life, I don't have health insurance. I can't afford $1,200 a month. And she said also, for the first time ever, this restaurant where she's worked over a decade moved her to under 30 hours a week. She said they calculated her preceding year and she worked 29.99 hours a week and has no health insurance. And the other waitress who was standing there, she told me, she said, well, you know, Ted, I'm 4 months pregnant. She looks fabulous. You can't tell she's pregnant at all. She's not showing at all. But she says, I'm 4 months pregnant. It's our first baby. We're really excited. She said, I just got a notification in the mail that I can't go to my doctor. The doctor that I've trusted on and relied upon, the doctor that I want to deliver this baby, my insurance that I've got says, sorry, that doctor's not in your network. You don't get to go to that doctor to deliver your baby. Obamacare isn't working, and in terms of what's going to be delivered, I think there is no problem that was more central to the American people in this last election than finally repealing Obamacare. Congress has taken it up right now. And in terms of what we're going to accomplish, here's the lay of the land in the Senate right now. Right now in the Senate, Senate Democrats are filibustering virtually everything. They're angry. They're angry at the election. They're angry at the results. And they're boycotting committee hearings. it may prove very, very difficult to get any legislation passed the next year or the next 2 years. If Democrats continue filibustering, we're not going to see legislation passing. Which means what's critically important if you're interested in actually accomplishing meaningful reforms to get our economy back is asking, all right, what tools are there that can't be filibustered? And there are three primary areas that are not subject to the filibuster. The first one is confirmations. You look at the cabinet. You'll recall 2 years ago, Harry Reid used what was called the nuclear option, blew up the Senate rules and lowered the threshold for executive confirmations from 60 votes to 51 votes. As a result of that, President Trump's cabinet nominees, I think they have been confirmed over and over and over again. Now, this is the slowest confirmation since George Washington. That the Democrats are able to delay it a few days or a few weeks, but at the end of the day, that's a 51-vote threshold. And the cabinet we've seen nominated is a strong, serious cabinet. You've got Texans, people like Rex Tillerson, people like Rick Perry serving in the cabinet, both of whom I think are going to do extraordinary jobs. You've got someone like Scott Pruitt at EPA, who was the Attorney General of Oklahoma, as someone who is not going to have EPA be zealots going after small businesses trying to kill jobs, but instead focus that organization on keeping the air clean and the water clean and protecting us, but not destroying people's jobs. When it comes to confirmations, we're going to confirm these nominees. We're also, by the way, going to confirm Neil Gorsuch, a strong, principled constitutionalist jurist, to replace Antonin Scalia on the Supreme Court. The second avenue that we can act with only 51 votes is what's called the Congressional Review Act, the CRA. That's a special bill that lets Congress rescind any regulation that was promulgated in the last 6 months of last year. There is a lot of appetite in both houses of Congress to use the CRA to wind back some of these most damaging regulations. What I would encourage you guys to do, every one of you in your businesses, you're facing regulations, you're facing barriers, reach out to our office. Let us know which regulations are most burdensome, are hurting your business the most, which regulations, if repealed, would have the biggest impact on your bottom line, on productivity, on job creation, on wages and salaries. Because under the terms of the law, the Congressional Review Act can rescind those regs, and the Democrats cannot filibuster it. That's only 51 votes. We're going to be seeing a lot of CRA repeals of regulations. And I think that will coincide with the administration on the executive side unwinding some of the most damaging regulations that are not subject to the CRA, that didn't come out in the last 6 months of last year, but were promulgated over the last 8 years. And then the third area is what's called budget reconciliation. Now, you may have heard some discussion of budget reconciliation, but that's a fairly obscure procedural term. Budget reconciliation is the statutory process for passing a budget. The reason it matters when it comes to legislating is under the terms of the statute, reconciliation only requires 51 votes and not 60. So it is a tool to get around a filibuster on the other side. You remember when George W. Bush was president, the Bush tax cuts were passed through budget reconciliation. Obamacare, when it was originally passed, much of Obamacare was passed through budget reconciliation. We're doing reconciliation right now. We're in the middle of it right now. Reconciliation is envisioned as the vehicle for Obamacare repeal. We're going to repeal Obamacare, and then everyone agrees we should replace it with patient-centered reforms that empower you, that put you in charge of your health care, so you're making decisions for your family in consultation with your doctor without government getting in the way. We should be doing things like allowing people to buy health insurance across state lines, which expands competitions, increases choices, lower prices. We should be expanding health savings accounts. We should be reforming the tax laws to make health insurance portable so that if someone loses their health insurance, loses their job rather, they don't lose their health insurance. It goes with them from job to job to job, and it's personal and portable and affordable. Reconciliation right now is the legislative vehicle for doing that, and as long as we do it on reconciliation, it can't be filibustered. And then the intention is later this year, this summer or fall, to do a second reconciliation. And this second reconciliation is intended to be principally the vehicle for tax reform. When I started at the outset talking about the two levers government has, reg reform and tax reform, I think we're going to finish 2017 having passed meaningful tax reform. I think the second reconciliation this year, tax reform and also Dodd-Frank, which has been killing jobs, imposing massive burdens, I think we should take on Dodd-Frank as well in the second reconciliation. But tax reform, at this point, I am not sure the contours of what will pass. I believe we will end 2017 with significant tax reform, and here's my hope. My hope is we go bigger and bolder rather than small. That we use this as an opportunity to pass really meaningful tax reform. What I would like to see is tax simplification. What I'd like to see is a simple flat tax where every individual and family pays a simple flat tax of 10%. You fill out your taxes on a postcard and you abolish the IRS. IRS doesn't get a lot of fans around here. And what I'd like to see is a simple business flat tax of 16%. And with those two taxes, you can get rid of every other tax. You can get rid of the corporate income tax. You can get rid of the payroll tax. You can dramatically simplify the time, the energy, the money that you're putting into tax compliance. And tax reform, every time we have passed tax reform that simplified the tax code, that reduces the burdens on small businesses, the result consistently is booming economic growth. So this year, I think we have a real potential to repeal Obamacare, to pass meaningful reg reform, to pass meaningful tax reform, and to confirm a strong constitutionalist successor to Justice Scalia. If we deliver on that, that will make one heck of an opening year. Now, every one of those, as I said, we could mess up, but what I'm urging folks to do is let's do what we said we would do. Let's deliver on our promises. And I just want to thank you guys for leading the business community in and around San Antonio, and for standing up and fighting for the free enterprise principles that have made America great and have made Texas great. I think we need to get back to those common sense Texas principles, and I'm encouraged that's exactly what we're going to do.
A lot of times people ask me why I show so much Ted Cruz news. I wasn't very much into politics as I raised 7 children, but my husband was, and I know that he really did like Senator Ted Cruz. So during the presidential election, I became a prayer warrior for Senator Ted Cruz, and got a lot of friends on Facebook. Most of my friends on Facebook are Ted Cruz supporters. You know, he's real, and I can trust him. And I just think that the people here in Central Texas and Austin area should know what our senator is doing, and I try to keep up with what he is doing and what's going on in the Senate, and try to find the videos that are on his cruz.gov, and just try to share that with the people here, the Christians especially, because Ted Cruz is a strong Christian. Another thing I like to do is Mark Crutcher. He has a show called Love Talks, and that is going to be on at 2 o'clock. He has his monthly program that's an hour long, and that's going to be on at 2 o'clock today. And he also has on a Facebook called Love Talks, and you can subscribe to him. It's Mark Crutcher. Now, Mark Crutcher is the producer, the man who did the Mahafa 21 program that we've shared about and talked about many times on our show. I really like Mark Crutcher. He's from Denton, Texas, and he really is a big, huge supporter of pro-life. And so he explains that. I'm going to show a 5-minute video, the most recent one that him and Renee did. And there's also a 14-minute one we'll probably show next week that when he started the Love Talks on Facebook, so that you know what's going on exactly up to date. And so we'll end with that, and then maybe have Priceless Song and our end tag. So thanks for joining us, and keep in touch with me on my Facebook. I'm on there every day. So join me. I will look for you. If you're in Austin, Texas, I'll be sure to friend you. And it is Mauri, Mauri .Gandy, Gandy. And I love you very much. And post me on Facebook. Keep in touch with me. Any news you want to share about your church, or especially Christian news. And you have a great week. Happy
Hello, welcome to
President's
Life
Day.
Talk Now. I'm Mark Crutcher.
And I'm Renee Hobbs.
Listen, today Renee has got a major league burr in her saddle over something.
I do. It's the hypocrisy of Hollywood. It's regarding Beyonce and her and being pregnant with twins.
Right. And she was at the Women's March the other day.
Yes, she was.
Raising a ruckus to support legalized abortion.
Yes, she was. It's okay for her to support her own child and to claim that she's pregnant with a baby, and for other women to kill their children.
Right. Oh, this is part of the hypocrisy of these people. But first, just to claim that they're babies.
Right.
I mean, she's on the Grammy Awards the other night. Talking about her children. She didn't call them fetuses or obligate parasites or globs of cells. They were her children.
Yes.
And talking about the fact that she has 3 heartbeats because she's got twins.
Yes.
Right?
And she says that. She claims that.
She said that.
Right.
Right.
And she dressed in a goddess suit and it proclaimed giving birth and motherhood, maternity.
They want their cake and eat it too.
Right.
And it is a level of hypocrisy that knows no bounds. But it's not just Hollywood. It's our population, our culture in general. You know, a few years ago on our show Life Talk, we had a story on the guy in Tennessee, the photographer who was taking. They were actually showing doing a video and a still photography of surgery on a baby that was taken out of the mother's womb, laid up on her stomach, and they did open heart surgery on this baby and then put the baby back in.
Yeah.
And when they were putting the baby back into the womb and the doctor was fixing to stitch it, he had his hand down there, the baby reached out of the womb and grabbed the doctor's finger.
Yeah.
And
that's sweet.
That picture is overpowering.
Right.
And you know, I was on a lot of shows at that time, and the pro aborts, of course, went berserk over this. This wound up on the cover of Life magazine. That little baby reaching out and grabbing hold of that doctor's finger. And I was talking about the sheer hypocrisy of how everybody thought this was so sweet and so tender and so cute. But if this woman had killed that baby,
right, it wouldn't be.
It'd just be a choice.
Right.
It's just a choice.
It would be a glob, a fetus.
Right.
There was, yeah.
And one of the things that one of the questions I was raising, and I'll bring this up to you. Let's say that you believe, and you use the language of the pro-aborts, and that's just a fetus. It's not. There's nothing there. It's not a human being. It's just a fetus. And because it's inside the mother's womb. All right. When that baby was outside the mother.
Right.
And that doctor was operating on it, I have a couple of questions. First off, who was the doctor operating on? If there was no other human being there,
right,
who was he operating on?
Right.
Because it wasn't the mother that he's working on hard, it was the baby. It was
the baby,
All
sure.
right. When that baby's out of that woman's belly and laying on her chest and they're operating on that baby, it's now outside her body. Yeah. So by the abortion industry standards, it's now a baby. It's not a fetus anymore. That's when it became a baby, when it was outside.
Right.
But when the surgery was over, it was put back in.
So now does it become a fetus again?
Does it revert back to a fetus?
Right.
In other words, this thing, whatever you want to call it, has this ability to morph from a clump of cells to a baby back into a clump of cells again.
Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it?
No, yeah, that does not happen.
Right. The fact is, this is something I've said all my life, ever since I've been in the pro-life movement, 35 years. The pro-aborts and the pro-lifers both know exactly the same information. They know that it's a baby. The only difference between pro-lifers and the pro-choice gang, whatever they want to call themselves, pro-abortion, pro-choice, I don't care. The only difference between us and them We both know the same things. We care, and they don't. They have a vested interest in killing those children.
Right.
They have a political interest in it.
Right.
They got a cultural interest in it.
Right.
We're in a cultural civil war.
Right.
And they're the casualties. They're the collateral damage in the cultural civil war that's going on. And that's the only difference between us and them, is that we know, they know, we care.
They don't.
They don't.
Right.
And this deal with Beyonce is a classic example of that.
Fine example of it.
That this woman can go and participate in this march,
Right.
and then a couple of days later go on talking about motherhood, and then she's a goddess and she nurtures the earth, or whatever the other drivel is that they're talking about, and their babies and their children.
And 3 hearts.
I got 3 heartbeats.
Yeah.
But, oh, I'm pro-choice. You can kill your baby if you want to. I would
Right.
never kill mine.
Right.
But your baby isn't as valuable as mine.
That's
So
right.
you can kill him.
That's what she's saying.
So this is what's got you all upset.
It does.
I don't
Yeah.
blame you.
Yeah.
It gets me upset too, but that's the nature of what we do.
Yeah, it
That's
does,
right.
unfortunately.
Thanks for joining us. Until next time, remember, Life Dynamics is not here to put up a good fight. We're here to win, because winning is how the killing stops.